Hello and welcome to the second of the Cloud Management Community's October live events. We run these on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month with guest speakers from across the cloud community. Before we introduce our speaker, Donna is going to talk about our sponsor.
I am, yeah. I was just sorting out the audio issue there for a second. So we are sponsored by, let me just get a slide on the screen, look at that. We are sponsored by, how do I change slide? This has gone well. Sponsored by Policy Pack, who are essentially a platform which simplifies management, reporting and automation through Config Manager and Intune, which is fantastic that they're supporting us and providing funding for the quiz and all that kind of stuff. So that's really good. And also Recast Software. So Recast are essentially the developer of Right-Click Tools, which is the free community tool which you can use to extend Config Manager, as you can see. And it just really makes right-clicking on devices a much more pleasant experience. They also have other tools, paid-for tools. Do check them out. Check out both Recast Software and Policy Pack. Dan, back to you.
Thank you, Dean. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for today, Donna Ryan. According to Donna's Twitter account, she is the mistress of WIM Witch, works for CDW, is the Microsoft Mobility MVP, a fan of home automation, a mum, a wife, and I spotted on Twitter the other day that she has a plethora of 3D printers, as you can see in the background. But there was much love from Simon Lee on the print factory that Donna's got going on as well. So yeah, Donna's choice of topic for today is WIM Witch live demo. We'd like to encourage everyone to submit questions, suggestions, information. So if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, get your questions in chat and we'll be able to reply. Alternatively, Donna can address these or one of us at different times during the talk or at the end. Make sure you also stick around for the quiz at the end. There's a financial incentive for the winner. I'd like to now hand you over to Donna for WIM Witch Live.
Well, thank you very much. This is an absolute treat to be here, and I love that. I love that intro. That was so cool. I've never felt like more of a badass. Have my name splashed up there. Good work, guys.
Yeah. I've just remembered that we forgot to get you to share your screen. So if you could share your screen, there'll be a button on your console.
Okay, and let's see. Select window or screen. Let's try screen 1. Let's see which one is that. No, that's not the one I want. How about 2? I guess that one is 3. Allow. All right, and move. All right, let me move this thing. All right, so we can see my PowerShell window. Fantastic. So, as was said, I'm going to be going over some of the features of WIM Witch. I know Dean put together a really good video. Was it last month? I kind of went into the basics, so I kind of wanted to cover some of the more in-depth scenarios, touch on Configuration Manager, some of its development history, just kind of really get into what this solution can really do. Yeah, as was said, if you got questions, throw them in the chat. I don't mind being interrupted. Please feel free to pick my brain. So I'm just going to go ahead and start off WIM Witch just with the.
Before you do, go ahead. We're on YouTube with a fairly good latency, so you might need to zoom in to. I don't know what the screen quality is going to be like, so you might need to zoom in. But you were doing it already, so I will disappear.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and fire off WIM Witch. And she's going to go ahead and run through her usual checks. Now I am running a pre-release version, which is why I've got this little joke about the temporal prime directive. For users of WIM Witch, you probably figured out that I'm kind of a big Star Trek fan, so I try to nest those types of jokes in whenever I can. This notification, though, is something new, and I have not done this before, but I also haven't had breaking changes. Well, intentional breaking changes anyway. I'm toying around with a better way to do end user notification instead of just a static a static commentary. But if you're just looking at moving into 3.2 and you're doing server servicing, seriously, go read the documentation. There's some things you need to know. Otherwise, we'll have our UI, which is standard, and I'm running this in with a configuration manager. And so if you have ConfigMan, there are some big advantages to using configuration manager integrated, or using WIM Witch integrated with configuration manager. You're going to get all the functionality that you currently get using OSDSUS, but there's more that you have. Teeing it up, it is the same type of exercise. So we're going to go in, in the source WIM and go pick our source. And I must say, and I'm just going to throw this out again, that WIM Witch isn't designed to reservice an individual WIM. So you're not going to build one and throw it back in her and reprocess. She doesn't do any cleanup. The way that I've built WIM Witch is essentially the WIM is disposable. And so when you go to rebuild, you're building a brand new WIM. So if you try to feed WIMs back into WIM Witch, you can get some unexpected behavior, just as an FYI. So I'm going to go ahead and work with Windows 11 since that's our newest operating system. Using ConfigMan, we'll see that she has defaulted to the configuration manager update catalog source. And there's a massive advantage to using the configuration manager site as your software update catalog source. And that is because it allows us to check for new updates on the fly. With OSDSUS, the way David Segura has written that, if there's a change to the catalog, you have to download an entirely new module. It's how it's written. But if you're going to upgrade a PowerShell module, you have to fully close PowerShell. So which kind of breaks the whole automation process if you get fully closed PowerShell. So with using ConfigMan, since we're just querying, essentially WMI, we don't have to close anything. So we get that as an additional advantage. If we're also using Configuration Manager, we don't have to re-download because we can just check on the fly because our catalog is getting updated independently. We absolutely can still download ahead of time, just like we have in the past. I'm not, because I don't think I really need to, but one thing that could be confusing, and I'm open to any UI feedbacks. The UI was totally written, I'm going to say ad hoc, it was just written as I went. There was no planning that went on a WIM Witch. When I started this project, my longest script was about 40 lines, and I'm now up to about 7,500. So most everything in here, I kind of had to figure out as I went, and as I go back and try to maintain code, especially the older stuff. Sometimes some of it's pretty cringy, but hey, you live and learn. It's my first project. Hopefully the second one comes out just as well. These checkboxes can be maybe just a bit confusing here. So you got optional updates and dynamic updates. And why aren't these just included? Optional updates aren't necessarily applicable to every device. So if you're looking examples of how Intel or Microsoft released a patch that fixed the WannaCry Intel vulnerability. Well, if you're running on a virtual machine, that may not be applicable. So there's certain things that fall into the optionals. I think I want to say the Adobe Reader Remover update also is classified as an optional. So I like to grab them, but that's what is typically in there. And dynamic updates, I found as I was writing this that dynamic updates aren't actually applied in the same function. They're not actually applied to the WIM. It's actually updating boot image, essentially. So that's why dynamic updates really don't apply during a regular servicing unless you tell it specifically to enable dynamic updates. But for this sake, I'm going to hit these two checkboxes. And when we go over to customize and enable updates, if we're going to do update checking on the fly, it will validate against those two checkboxes to make sure it gets those payloads. I think, Dean, you covered .NET 3.5 and OneDrive in your presentation, so I'm not going to won't spend a ton of time on that. But I don't think that you covered language packs and features on demand and all of that kind of stuff.
No, I didn't really understand that.
The language packs or all the other stuff?
All of this stuff in this customizations thing. I
Okay.
kind of tick random things and try to fumble through it for the video.
Gotcha. Okay, well then, I guess let me just go ahead and cover all the checkboxes then. So enable updates when we make it so, which kicks off the build process. Anything that's going to be customization generally lives in these two tabs. And yeah, I agree. This is kind of a crappy UI design, so I'm noodling a way to make this part a little more straightforward. But in order to apply updates to your WIM, we need to have this checked. And if we want to apply the optionals, it's just a matter of having that second checkbox checked. So, I mean, it just kind of is what it is, I guess. As far as updating the OneDrive client, the downloading of this happens largely automatically. And we can see this actually, because I can just go ahead and hit download. And if you're dealing with Windows 11 or Windows 10, you can see right there, we're downloading the new OneDrive agent. There isn't as far as I'm aware, there isn't like an XML feed or some way to check an existing version, because all this is doing is just doing a download of an executable at a given path. So I don't have anything to query against because there's no OneDrive client catalog. So anytime that you're downloading updates for Windows 10 or Windows 11, it's just going to download the OneDrive client. And we can actually see that in our updates folder. There it lives. And so if you've downloaded Windows 10 or Windows 11, you can easily just update the OneDrive setup client. And so that's what that does. And again, if anybody's got any questions, just go ahead and shoot them out. .NET 3.5. This is a fun one. .NET has its own binaries that are on the ISO under the sources SXS folder, which we can easily see that. Just to prove this out, let's go into, all right, there's Windows 11, there's an ISO, oops, sources side by side. And this is where .NET 3.5 lives on Windows 11. Now, if you go to enable .NET 3.5, once the image is applied and Windows is now online, you have to import this cab. You can do it through pulling it down through Windows Update. But if we want to do this during imaging, traditionally you would go ahead and grab this cab file and then make a package and then have a program that called DISM and pointed to this thing. But we can do this offline as well. But because it's not just a simple switch, we still have to manage this binary. So in order to get this into our catalog and make it actionable, we actually have to do an import. And so if we look at our importing options, let me just go ahead and pick an ISO here. Get rid of that. And I'm going to go to images and I'll say Windows 11. So if I tell it I want to do .NET binaries, and here, let me go ahead and delete WIM Witch imports .NET Windows 11. All right, let me just do this. All right. So what I can do with WIM Witch here is I've got my ISO selected, and I've just downloaded it from the VLSC. I can say go ahead and get my .NET binaries. And then what she's going to do behind the scenes is mount the image, create the folder structure, and catalog it with the particular version number. And this is crucial because your different versions of .NET do have applicability differences to operating systems. So you can't just use the .NET package from Server 2016 and Windows 11. It may be overkill to categorize them, on a version by version, like in Windows 10, but it works. And so once it's imported, then that's all we really need to do and to let WIM Witch take action on that. So now that that's imported, if we're building our build and we hit inject .NET 3.5, what WIM Witch will do at runtime is determine what operating system, which version, and then compare it to her catalog. And in this case, Windows 11. There is a payload, and then she'll just go ahead and run dism and apply that cab file against the mounted image in order to enable .NET 3.5. Does that make sense, Dean?
Couldn't find my button. Yes, yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So that covers essentially these four: language packs, local experience packs, and features on demand. That can be its whole own discussion. In order to get these objects in here, that's the purpose of this import LP plus FOD tab. And I am fully going to cop that this UI is awful. I hate this thing. And I really need to spend a whole bunch of time revamping it, because this is the most wonky interface that I've built. The problem is that there's some things I just can't auto detect because of issues with how files were created. So if we're looking at like the Windows 10 2004 21H1 H2 21H2, they all share in the offline, they all share the same version number. So there's no way to tell without mounting the image which version it is. So there's some assumptions that need to be made, and it just makes my life challenging. But anyway, enough complaining. So let's say we want to import some language packs. Cool. Well, we need to start with a language pack ISO. So we can download those from the VLSE or MSDN or wherever it is that you get them. So let's see, who is that? That's OEM Retail. All right, we're going to go ahead and do Windows Server. I could have sworn I had. That's a part one. All right, who do I've got here? Nuts to it. I'll just do this one, language pack. Okay, so this is for Windows 10. Now, the fun thing, too, is with Windows 10 2004, 20H2, 20H2, 21H1, 21H2, they all share a common feature on demand and language pack. So these are all stored under 2004, which was the build number for 20H1. If you're getting confused between the numbers, don't feel bad, because it's really hard to keep them all straight as it is. Anyway, long story short, go get your ISO with your language packs and mount it. That's all we need to do from there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go into WIM Witch, and we're going to choose what objects we want to do. So let's say I'm going to grab a language pack, and then I'm going to pick my operating system. Oops. And then I'm going to pick my version. Now for Windows 10 2004, the 21H1, you can just anything that's a 2000 class, just grab 2004. It's all the same. And then what we're going to do is hit select to go find the source. So what we're going to do is go into this folder. By the way, this is all covered in the docs over on MS Endpoint. Please, if you're going to do this, use the docs till you get familiar, because there are no safety checks on this whatsoever. So you need to be in the right folder. All right, so I've selected my language packs folder. And now you can see I've got an out grid. And this is all of the cab files. These are all language packs from within that folder. So what I can do here is I can say I want to import those. I can hit OK. And then I can hit import. And then we can see that she went and imported 5 language packs from that folder and imported them. Where did they go? Good question. Those went in imports, lang, Windows 10, language packs. And I had some other ones previously imported, but I don't want those ARM ones, because I'm not working with ARM. But yeah, here's our language packs. And so what we can do, and this is the neat thing with having, well, let me go get through the rest of the importation. Now we can go ahead and do local experience packs. And if we're going to stay within the same class, we need to select a different folder. This folder is pretty self-explanatory, local experience packs. This is key, though. Stay on this the main folder. And then again, it's pick the ones that you want. All right, I'll take those. Why not? And then import. And then the same thing. I already had those binaries in, so you can see they've already been imported. And then features on demand, that's a different ISO entirely. Eject. And then if I'm going to go back to images, and where was disk 1? All right. So feature on demand. So now what WIM Witch does with everything Windows 10 when you're doing a feature on demand is she just imports the whole folder. And I didn't put any granular checking in there because I guess I forget my reasoning. But at this point, she's just imports everything through in bulk. Which means, though, that you don't anything that you may need will be available to you if you so need it. And this will take a minute to run. There she goes. Now, this does work a little bit differently on Windows 11. The language packs and the local experience packs largely work the same. This is all covered in the doc for when we implemented 3.2.2. Essentially, what changed, though, on the Windows 11 ISO side for features, they combined the feature on demand disks with the language pack disks. So now there's just a single ISO. And they combined the language packs and the features on demand into one overarching folder. Local experience packs are still just local experience packs. So I ended up building some logic into WIM Witch to determine if you're going in for a language pack, it'll only display the language packs versus the features on demand. Come on. Yeah, it's copying like 5 gig. She's copying 5 gigs over, so this will just shouldn't take more than just another quick minute.
So you combine the language pack and features on demand into one folder. How does that affect me when I'm using it, or have you fixed all that in WIM Witch?
Yeah, I fixed all that in WIM Witch. So the behavior is largely going to be the same as we just saw. It's just a matter of which folder you want to choose. So what I can do, let me go ahead and grab that real quick, because I know I put the Windows. Okay, and that's 64-bit. Okay. Let me go ahead and copy this down. Nothing like beating up on the I/O of this one volume on this poor little machine.
That's it. You mentioned earlier on that you, built WIM Witch sort of out of necessity and just built it up as you went along. Where did you learn how to do the GUI stuff? Because that's the thing I've never really understood, how to create an interface.
So I was at MMS. Was at the last time it was in Mall of America. So was that 2019? Yeah, because COVID. Yeah. And I saw a presentation by Stephen Owen. And it kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, this really isn't difficult. And then I immediately forgot all about all that stuff. But Stephen had put together a fantastic blog, which I think I've got his info pulled up. Yeah, I do here. So if you go to foxdeploy.com, Stephen Owen has this 5-part series, creating PowerShell GUIs in minutes using Visual Studio. And it's fantastic. I think after spending about 35 minutes with the tutorial and never making it past step 2.5, I was already off on my own making dialog boxes and buttons. So if you want to dabble, or at least start kicking the tires, this walkthrough is absolutely brilliant. I credit Stephen with being one of those people that helped get WIM Witch off the ground by having this well thought out blog with good links and good examples and good graphics. This is how I learned it. And if you end up looking at his examples and then you go digging into my code, you could still tell that exactly where I got the information, or where I started with his template, because I mean, we can cheat. There is this line here, your XML goes here. That's from Steven's example. I just kind of left it in there because why not?
Nice.
All right, we're almost done. All right, we've now got all the features on demand. So from a Windows 10 perspective, if we go to features on demand, and then, oh no, they're already imported. That's right, selection's a different story. If we're going to do, let's say, language packs in Windows 11, let me go ahead. All right, cool, that just got mounted. Let me go ahead and ditch this. Let me go ahead and mount this one. Images. All right, here we go. Languages and optional features. Come on. So if we look at this file structure here, once this thing loads, gotta love live demos.
Yeah. It is good to see it in use, though, actually being used properly. Because when I do the YouTube video, you know, I try and remove as much of the loading time and all that kind of stuff. So because it's boring, but having the experience to go through it and see it live is pretty good.
All right, so we can see here, instead of having the lang pack and features on demand on a separate disk, they're now under one overarching folder, languages and optional features. Oh, so we can see here, if I can find where, I think it's under, yeah, there's your language features. So what you would typically pull out for a feature on demand to support the languages are within here. So let me show you how this works. So we're instead, let's go ahead and do a language pack. And I'm just going to select that folder. And so now what WIM Witch is going to do is filter on client language packs. So these are still the cab files. This is still our traditional language packs. And so I could go ahead and just take those. There we go. Take those for an import. Works the same way. Feature on demand, same folder, and I can go into here. And see, now we've got the out grid, and it's removed the actual language cabs. But what I'm going to do, let's say I want to pull in, ESMX. Oops. And then I can sort by name. So these would be the 5 packages that you would know if you're going to do language setup via the settings, where you set up like the handwriting recognition and text to speech, or it usually can get those from Windows Update. Those are all categorized under language features, so I can just pull those in. If you need the other languages for any of like the RSAT functionality, they're here too. It's just a matter of knowing what you're looking for, and it does help to know what you're doing with language packs. WIM Witch will just import and inject whatever you tell her. It's just not designed to make it to double check your process or ensure you're doing it correctly. It's just enough tools to be dangerous, really. Let's say I'm going to take those and then import, and they're imported. So now what we can do with our customizations, because we've selected Windows 11, the customization is going to know what we're working with. And most of these options before you hit make it so are largely dependent on which WIM you've selected. AppX has a query on this. The language packs do. There's a good chunk. So if you haven't imported or selected a WIM yet, some of this other stuff may not work. So always start with your source WIM, just a pro tip. All right, so let's say we're going to inject language packs. Now I can hit select. And she's just going to go ahead and look at what's been imported. So instead of having to monkey around with those ISOs and find stuff, I can just take what I want. And that's the one I want to do. The local experience packs, I haven't imported. These, as I understand, are largely getting deprecated. And for some legacy support, that's much more bountiful in Windows 10. Windows 11, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to leave that one off. But then if I want to do features on demand here, I can select, and hey, There's my Mexican language variant of the Spanish that I imported earlier. And then those are ready to go. And then as far as importing and setting this stuff up within your WIM file, that's all you need to do. So just import the binaries that you need to, and then you can just select them. And then she'll inject those in order. Those are language packs are the first things to go in, followed by, I think, .NET and a couple other ancillary ones. And then the software updates, it happens at the end. And the reason being is if you apply a cumulative update and then you apply a language pack, the language pack isn't patched, so it breaks the update, so then you need to apply the update again. So it is important to do it in the proper order, which WIM Witch does enforce. Any other questions on language packs, features on demand? It's a little more clear.
No, it looks good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So our other customizations that we have, and generally I would do these in a task sequence. I've never really baked these into a WIM, but since you can, why not? And I had people asking for it. So if you're doing your default app association, you can go ahead and pick the XML file, start menu layout. This I had to fix for Windows 11 because Windows 11 is using a JSON, not an XML. And so it's still the same name except JSON, same folder path. It's just a different file type. So Windows 11 is at least smart enough to look for a JSON. If it's Windows 10, it will look for an XML.
Have you updated that to? Because I think you need the JSON for pinning apps. I need the XML on top of the JSON for pinning websites or something. I think I've seen.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't dug that deep into it yet. That was just a relatively easy fix to put in. It took me about 3 weeks to get the support for Server 22 and Windows 11 baked in. Some of it was cleaning up my old code and some crappy processes, but there's a lot of testing that goes in. It's always embarrassing on a release, and then immediately someone say, "Oh yeah, this doesn't work." Yeah, and that's why we're on version 3.22 at this point. Because I'm only one person and I still haven't quite figured out a perfect testing regime yet.
So this version here you're using is 3.23.
Yes. So
3.22 is the one that's released.
Correct.
Cool.
If you wanted to bake in registry files, you can. We're just looking for .reg. It doesn't matter which kind as long as they're validly exported. So instead of trying to bake those into a package, those can all be baked into there as well. What that's worth. App removal. This is dependent on the version of Windows, because Windows 10 1909 has a different set of apps than Windows 10 20H2, which has different apps than Windows 11. So that's critical. But what's neat is we can go ahead and enable that and hit select. And let's say I want to get rid of Xbox, and I still don't understand why Xbox is baked into Enterprise SKU. But if we want to go ahead and rip those out, we absolutely can. Word of warning, WIM Witch will rip out whatever you tell her to. And I didn't put any safety checks on there. So yes, she will absolutely let you rip the store out. Or yes, she will let you rip the codecs out or the Visual Studio redistributables. I don't recommend doing that. So I assume you know what you're doing. Just don't go in there and then just select all. There are some of those things really should be left alone. But Xbox, no, that can go away. There's some of the other less used. This is probably the tab that I'm the most proud of, because in the first year and a half of WIM Witch development, it was, hey, Donna, can I have this checkbox? Hey, Donna, what if we have this feature? Hey, what about this? What about this? Yeah, I'm one person. And I only have so many hours in the day. So what this tab allows you to do, it really allows you to do two different ways of customizing your own process outside of what WIM Witch has to offer. We've got these two buttons: pause after mounting and pause before dismounting. What those do is it actually stops the make it so process. And there's a dialog box that comes up and says, click OK to continue or cancel to discard the WIM. And the idea being is, let's say you wanted to copy a file into your mounted offline WIM. Actually did this with a client where distributing USB keys to do Autopilot for existing devices. And IT wanted to have TeamViewer on every USB key as a break glass scenario. So what we did is we used this pause before dismounting. And right before the dismount process in WIM Witch, boop, it stops. And since it's a mounted image, you have full access to the file system. So I could go in and just make a folder, in Windows and call the TeamViewer and copy it over the executable. So that way there was in a known path for every edition that got pushed out. But it lets you go ahead and poke around. If you want to modify anything, you want to go look at the registry, copy files. It's kind of a neat way to do some manual intervention. Or if you're doing testing and you don't want to sit through the entire dismount process like I do when I'm trying to do validation trials, I'll just do the pause before dismounting. So that way I don't care about it. I just want to make sure everything's applying correctly. But that gives you access to the file table, long story short. The other thing we can do is we can run scripts. And I would love to find somebody. I've had one user so far confirmed that has used this. So if there's more, I would love to hear from you. Please tell me the good, bad, and ugly, because to me, this makes this platform extensible. What we can do here is we can choose when in the make it so build process do we want to run our script. So we may want to have an action that needs to happen for update supply. So you could have the script run after the image mount. Or maybe you want to take an action on the image before it's dismounted, committed. You could do it on before dismount. Or if you wanted to do something to the WIM file once build's complete, copy it to a special share. Do something wherever you want to do. You could have it run on build completion. Essentially, what you need to do is go ahead and select a PS1 file, and then you can just put in your parameters. It's very basic. It's kind of a no frills, but it does give you that ability. So if there's something like, this would be, I wish WIM Witch had this. Well, cool, go build it. Slap it in there. You got questions on how to make it work, let me know. So hopefully more folks use this. This is, I think is pretty valuable. Drivers, I think, is pretty straightforward. The autopilot for existing. Did you cover the autopilot when you went to there, or did you just kind of do a brief look at this one?
I don't remember. I think I certainly talked about it. I said it was cool that you could do it.
Okay.
I don't think I actually tried it out.
Okay. So what we can do with this, and just and I don't want to. I know we're starting to come across, on the second half of the presentation, and I'm already behind in what I wanted to cover. But what this tab will allow you to do is to retrieve the JSON that has the autopilot tenancy information and format it correctly. You can do it manually by loading all the various modules and logging in, then copying it down, and then formatting it, and then naming it correctly, and then figuring out how to get it into your WIM file, or you could just use a retrieve file and then select. But yeah, she'll connect up to Azure AD, authenticate, you find your tenancy, pull the thing down. There is a special task sequence that needs to be run. You don't want to run just a regular. I do actually have a script run to build that task sequence, and I've always thought about just putting in the button just to go, build task sequence config-man mash, but I just haven't gotten to building it in. So if anybody wants to see that, make this easier button, let me know. I'll add it to my work list. Let's see. I think we've covered on most everything. So config man. This is how I knew when I finally started to develop some chops. And to me, it was a massive milestone. Coming into this, trying to build this tool, I don't know how to make a right-click tool. I don't know how to talk to configuration manager. That's just like really professional, hard stuff. And and I did it. Like, if there's one takeaway from this whole talk, I want anybody to take away, like, I'm not smart. I'm just persistent, and I don't give up. And if I can make something like this that's used, globally, you absolutely can too. It's just time, dedication, persistence. It has nothing to do with smarts. So please go make your tools.
Good point.
And so if you're using config-man and you haven't set up the console extensions, there's a button to do so right here. Right now, you can see she does an auto detect. As of today, this has to be run on a primary. in order to have talk directly to the server. Yes, I know I can do admin service. Yes, I know. Yes, I know it's in the works. That's probably once I get my bug squash from the Windows 11 release, and then 21H2 next month. Once I get all that settled, then starting to improve on this stuff. But you can simply just hit the install button, and console extension goes really quick. What you will need to do too, since they introduced the console extension community hub integration, there's a checkbox to only allow console extensions that are approved or signed or something like that. That'll break this. You have to go uncheck that because this isn't signed. But once that's installed, your console tools will be there. So just to kind of briefly go over what we can do here, we can make a new image for Configuration Manager. You can see the package ID is all grayed out, which is fine. So what we're going to do is we'll give this be a little more. So that's the name, and that's actually going to be the name in the Configuration Manager console. Build numbers auto-generated. The image version and the description, those actually are these two columns, this version and the commentary. And what I suggest using are these checkboxes called autofill, because what they're going to do is auto-populate with usable information. So if we do an autofill on there, what that's going to do is give our image a timestamp, because you can see that right here. This is built on May 25th at 2:15 in the afternoon. So you can tell right at the glance when the last time you built the image was, which is kind of handy. The description is kind of handy as well. It's not terribly granular, but you can see what's been modified. Now it's not going to give you the specifics. It doesn't tell you which specific AppX packages, that kind of fun stuff. But you can see just kind of at a glance what you've done to it. And I think that's kind of handy. Any other suggestions, please shoot them at me. If you're going to do binary differential replication or do a package share, you can click that. You can choose either your DP or DP group where you want content to go to. I've got one DP because it's a lab. And what's cool is when she goes ahead and runs through Make It So, she'll actually go ahead and then, create a new image with the name and populate all of this information. But the real strength within Configuration Manager integration is that WIM Witch actually catalogs what she creates for Configuration Manager, which is really at the heart of how the console integration works. So again, if you go ahead and make a new image, once the build process is complete, then it gets cataloged based off the package ID. And then everything that you've checked between your source WIM, which updates you wanted, which customizations, which apps, which folder, all that stuff all gets recorded. And so you can just access it really quickly. To make it so with ConfigMan, we need to give the WIM file a name. And then we also need to put it out on a UNC share because ConfigMan doesn't work with local folders with very few exceptions. So let me go into operating system and then images. Oops. Yeah, no, cancel. Let me get my path. So the reason why I'm doing this is because this button here natively only works with local folders. Womp womp. So you can just go ahead and paste your destination. If we want her to go ahead and check for brand new updates while she's running, we can hit that checkbox. If we were going to make an upgrade package, if we're going to make an upgrade package as it exists, in here, that's essentially what this can do. Really, it's just an ISO, the contents of your ISO without it being in an ISO. That's really all that is. So you could go ahead and target whatever your upgrade package path is, and then have her update the entire contents, and then dump it there, and then you could manually just trigger an update content in ConfigMan, or if you want to leave it standalone, you could. But if you notice, though, if you hit the upgrade package or create ISO, these checkboxes light up. And so if you're making an ISO or an upgrade package, dynamic updates now can be applied. So we can check that. If for some reason you want to update Windows PE with cumulative updates and servicing stack updates, you absolutely can. I'm not quite sure on the big advantage of it, but yeah, you can do that. And then if you just wanted to make an ISO or just an upgrade package and not have standalone WIM, you can use that button for do not create, and then it just leaves that at default. And that way you can just crank out an ISO. I want the standalone WIM. I'm going to rename this again. Demo. And then if we were to go ahead and hit config or hit make it so, which I'm not going to because, you know, if you've done this, it's, you know, with all this stuff, that's 45-minute build process right there, and you don't have the time. But what we can do though is, let me go ahead and just close this out. And what we can do is we can now go into Configuration Manager, and I can say update an existing image, and I can go select. And see now, we should be able to get a side-by-side here. So just pulling it right out of WMI, and I can say, yeah, I want this one. And if we go ahead and look what's going on in here, I'm just going through, found the package ID, oops. You know, found out where it was going to, checking, you know, cleaning itself up and applying things. But then what we have is, there's our WIM file already selected. Our types of updates are already selected. Our customizations, our others, our apps, our config-man options, our folder destinations. This is all there. And all we needed to do is just know which package we wanted. And then off she goes. It's largely just using the save load mechanism. All I'm doing is, instead of just doing the save load in the regular location, I have a config manager folder, and these are just XML files. And so, but you can see that the XML files are the same name as the package ID, which is a unique ID, so that gives me something I can build off of. And so,
nice.
Let's see how all this works with config-man. So if I go into Configuration Manager, I can right-click and go, let's make a new WIM Witch image. And she's going to check to make sure she's running in 64-bit and running with admin. And then loads the IO, or not the IO, the UI. So I could go through and build whatever I wanted to, but see it default with Configuration Manager, new image. If I wanted to edit this image, I can right-click, and I got the option there for edit WIM Witch image config. And she's going to do is go ahead and load that essential save file. Here's our package ID, and then here is our information already pre-populated. So I could go and say, you know, I don't want to do the text to speech. Doink. Okay. Make it so, and then it'll go ahead and get updated and then save. The other thing we can do, and this is really neat, oops, is we can just go ahead and right-click and go update with WIM Witch. And since it's already built, by doing that, it'll just kick off the build process. And so from a one right-click and one left-click, you can update all sorts of, you know, your entire image, which sure beats the pants off of going schedule updates. Now we wait. And then we select everything, and then we wait. I think this is a much better option. But for those that aren't using Configuration Manager, who still want some of this quick and easy actions, ConfigMan also has command line options, which it does come to a surprise to some folks. Probably those that haven't read the docs. There's a whole section on command line. So if we go into, well, let me let's do this launch just natively real quick. There's the save and load tab. What it allows us to do is to select our options, like let's go ahead and do Windows 11, and we're going to go ahead and do Enterprise, and I'm going to say, yep, and I want to do those, and I want to do that, and sure, what else do I want to do? I'm going to call this Blarg. And then that's fine, and I can go up to here. And I can go ahead and just give this a name. And I'm going to save it. And the file is saved. But what I can do here is if I go back into WIM Witch, I can go ahead and load this thing. And this is the same mechanism that Configuration Manager is using. It's the same thing. That's really great when you get to reuse code. But it's all there. So what we can do with WIM Witch is we can leverage those folders. So what we can do is to turn it in automatic mode. First command line parameter is important, auto. That's telling WIM Witch, yeah, don't load the UI. We're going to auto mode. So then we got 2 additional parameters we can do. We can do auto file, which we could point this to a particular save file. So there's our demo. And if I were just to go ahead and fire this off now, she'll go ahead and load that file, load the options, and start building. But what we can also do is if we want to do these in bulk, there's another option called auto path. And what you can do is you can point her at a folder. Now, what you will need to do is to copy all of your configs over to a folder that you want to use. Or you can just point it right at the config folder. The config folder is where the files get saved by default. But if you point this to whatever path that you want to, she will go ahead and parse every save file in there. So you could have your Windows 10, your Windows 11, your Server 22, Server 22, 19, and then with one command line, update them all in series, which is also pretty neat.
That is good.
So let's see. What else?
In chat, if you want to.
Sure.
If you want to go through that. So it is. So OSD Cloud has a feature where you can download the Windows image file. I mean, that's the whole point of OSD Cloud, isn't it? And drivers and feature on demand and language and stuff. Will you be looking at making that into a future version of WIM Witch?
If there's enough demand, like with the Windows image, okay, I could see some validity, but she supports images that were downloaded through the Windows image creator, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be from the VLSC. If it's an ESD type WIM file, she'll convert that. So yeah, potentially I could put that in if there's enough demand. I mean, there's just only me, and I got a full-time job and kids and 3D printers to feed, so. If there's a need, yeah, I can do it. Drivers, probably not for the OS. I don't think a lot of people are using the driver functionality, so to sit and try and co-opt the code and merge it into here for something that somebody's not going to use. Again, I'm happy if you guys want to prove me wrong. If there's a demand for me to do that, sure. I'm absolutely at the beck and call of my users. But
yeah, I think
I could see.
With the OSD Cloud, it's much more dynamic, isn't it? It picks the drivers for the model you're building, so that makes a lot more sense. Whereas if you were having to choose the drivers and then stick them into an image, you would have one image per device or a very big image, lots of devices. So then it wouldn't really. I'm not sold on that one.
No, I could
language and stuff.
Yeah, now I could see a value in downloading a PE driver cab from HP, Lenovo, or Dell. And then when you could then inject those into the boot image if you're making an ISO or if you're making an ISO or working with a Windows PE image, then those could potentially be put in there. But I think realistically, most of the folks here are handling drivers natively through MDT or Configuration Manager, so it's a pretty low ask.
Sure.
Well, good question though. So that one does that. Okay, and then any other questions?
No, not yet. No.
Okay.
Been really thorough so far. And lots of lots of the stuff you've been going through. I did read the docs. I don't know if that was a sort of aimed at me. I did read the docs, I did, but it was
just a little.
There's so much. There's so much to pick up. It's such a massive tool, and it's for very specific use cases as well. So I'm in a lab. I don't really have a thing I'm trying to solve, and in the demonstrations, I'm trying to pick up a thing that might be relevant. So it is quite difficult to do. But yeah, having this demonstration is really good.
Okay. So you know, one of the cool things though about having your own tool is you can do whatever the hell you want to. So that's how I have, you know, an obnoxious button that says "Make it so," because I wanted that. That actually came from when I was starting to work with Steven's blog, and I'm working on my WPFC, and his one, he's got a little picture of a fox. I changed that to the Klingon emblem, and then instead of success, I had to say Kapla. And then as I'm just, you know, building and dorking around, I'm like, okay, yeah, make it so. That'd be hilarious, and I just left it in there. So I've also got some Monty Python references thrown into here. There's dad jokes hidden in there. That was actually one of the improvements of version 3.2.0 is better visibility for dad jokes. What else is in there? Oh, there's Warcraft references. If you've ever noticed at the end of the build, it says job's done. If you ever played Warcraft 2, or the peons, you'd send him to go chop down trees, job's done. There's that. And then if you use the auto path bulk processing, to say that the bulk process is done, it says work complete without obviously, you know, the audio. So yeah, you can have fun with this stuff. I know there's a lot of folks tend to look at the community tools as this is a serious thing, but yeah, I'm not a very serious individual. I try not to be. So I like to have fun with this stuff.
That's really good. Another question has come into chat from Andrew. So any tips on using Autopilot? Any points to consider? You covered it fairly early on, as in you showed that it was possible. Is there any sort of gotchas or tips that you want to cover?
Yes, there is one major. Well, there's, I guess, one gotcha. There's two ways that you can use that Autopilot with WIM Witch, because all WIM Witch is doing for you is creating that JSON file and then putting it in the image where it needs to go. But there's still that needs to happen during the build process. And so if you're using a task sequence, we need to get rid of the unattended XML file. The unattended XML file has a higher precedence than the JSON. So if you go in, you know, so what you can do is if you want to do like a full build and capture, like you want to bake Win32 apps in there, you could do like a traditional build and capture, because sysprep removes an unattended XML file. But if that also takes forever, and so the technique I like doesn't even go into Ubi. So what you would do instead is in your task sequence, you know, you'd have your partitioned format, apply your Windows image, and then apply network, apply operating system, apply the network, apply the Windows settings. And then you put in a manual command line step to delete the unattended XML file. And then you can just call a reboot as the next step. Because all you needed to do is just to lay down the WIM file, rip out the unattended XML file, and then boom, when the thing reboots, you're in Ubi and you're talking Autopilot. So that's the key thing, the key takeaway there is if you're going to do this the quick method without doing a capture, it's absolutely paramount that you remove that unattended XML file, which is why I wrote that script in the first place, just to make that easier. Per Larsen. Yes, yeah. Per Larsen had a blog post a couple of years ago looking at this technique manually. I think I referenced that in one of my blog posts. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Oh. Here you go. No. Yeah, there you go. I will throw this. Do I have access to the chat? I probably do.
If you put it in chat, we can put it into YouTube and Twitter.
All right, I'll just throw that in.
Cool.
So essentially, with this article, you know, he talks about, you know, how to obtain it, but you can see a screen grab of what the task sequence is going to look like. Granted, it's for MDT, so there's some things that if you've never used MDT may be a little bit unfamiliar, but you get the gist. The key takeaway, though, is if you're not going to do a sysprep, then you absolutely have to remove the unattended XML file for the process to work. But it's also, if you do that, it's brilliant.
Yeah, cool. Good point. Great question, Andrew. Thank you for that.
So I think we're at the top of the hour here. I think I've done a pretty good job of trying to hit some of the some of the more niche aspects and some of the deeper features of WIM Witch, without hitting the make it so button, because I didn't want to tie up my PowerShell session for 40 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, awesome. That was really good. Thank you very much for that. If there are any more questions, throw them in the chat. We've got about a 15-second delay on the chat, so yeah, we'll bear that in mind. So what's next what's next on your to-do list for WIM Witch then? What's your the next thing you're going to do?
Right now, I'm trying to work on Windows 10 21H2 support. So I've started building that part in. I've still got a couple other bugs that I want to squash. I need to remove some old code that supports like 2004. Just cleaning that up. But yeah, that's not really so much a feature. From the feature side, what I really want to do is be able to run WIM Witch remotely off of the primary site server, because she doesn't run on 2012 R2. That's an issue with DISM. The old DISM just isn't smart enough. And yeah, you can swap around the what do they call that? The source path, so you're pointing at 80K's DISM versus the native one, but it still doesn't quite work right. So I really want to get support so you can run this on wherever you got a console. And then I want to be able to deploy WIM Witch through the community hub. But that's going to retake a massive re-architecting of how WIM Witch works, because she was never intended to run as a module. It was designed to run as a portable PS1 file. And if you go ahead and install anything to the community hub, it puts it in the user profile on the C drive, which is not where you want to keep gigabytes and gigabytes of WIM files and updates and language packs. So I need to figure out a way to kind of break WIM Witch apart and function in different components and as modules. So I think that's kind of where I'm going with it next.
Cool. Really good. Okay, there's no more questions that have come in. Anything from the team? Do you want to ask any questions? I know, Dan, you've been working on some... well, we talked about WIM Witch at work before, a few months ago now, wasn't it? Anything to add before we...
It really actually fills the gap between the difficult use of MDT for certain projects, actually, for a requirement to just inject an autopilot JSON into a WIM, and just literally simple things like that where you want to just do some really quick fixes for things. If this really does fill the gap really quickly that MDT just doesn't do for you. So yeah, no, really, really good, and really, really good.
Thank you.
Sorry, Andy, you are muted. Start again.
I'm muted, yeah. Fail. Yeah, Donna, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So you've obviously been kind of recognised by Microsoft with the MVP status and what have you. What other interest has Microsoft shown in your toolset? I mean, I think what's great is the likes of yourself kind of generating and building all of this. But I do often wonder with OSD and what you've done here, whether Microsoft will take more of an interest in these things and kind of build something themselves, or get you to help architect something for them. Is there any other interest?
No, not really. Microsoft's kind of like, still looking at cloud first, and that's where all their development is. So for us dorking around on OSD, it's like, okay, cool, thanks for filling the gaps for us. There's nobody there's not people clamoring for better image servicing, willing to pay for that, because it needs to need to spend some serious money in engineering. It'll probably take them $1 million just figuring on you throw 10 people at a problem. So is it worth it? Probably not. I mean, that's kind of where us MVPs come in to help fill those gaps. The same could be said too with driver automation tool and modern driver or Nikolai's cloud lapse solution. I mean, that's absolutely fills a missing gap, but that Microsoft hasn't filled. So no, there really hasn't been. Microsoft, and their folks tend to largely kind of stay out of the community tools just from a conflict of interest perspective. I know there's some folks on Twitter that follow me that are on various teams and have been very helpful in some diagnostics and working behind the scenes to get answers as to why this is broken. There's a reason why it's broken versus, oh, we just broke it just because it's to screw with you. But yeah, there really isn't any like interest in like, trying to buy it from me and then turning it into like a new feature or something. Although if somebody's from Microsoft and wants to buy WIM Witch, call me.
Yeah, there's your lottery ticket right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get what you're saying, because I've tried to kind of get some of the kind of Microsoft support guys involved with some of the community stuff we do, and there's very little interest. I think like you say, there's a conflict of interest. So just was interested. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned some of the MS Endpoint Manager team there when you referenced the community tools. Do you want to talk about that briefly? What that is? I can put the link into chat.
Sure. And so that group, MSEndpointMgr, formerly scconfig.mgr, the guys that run that, Nikolai, Morris, and Jan, decided to rebrand when Microsoft rebranded. We are all but one of us at MVP now. So it's our blog site primarily. We're between Sandy Zhang, Morris, Daly, Nikolai Anderson. There's Jan Skanke. I think if I'm butchering anybody's names, I've known these guys for years, but and Terrence is still in there a little bit. Jordan Benzing also. Michael Merdal, Ben Whitmore. And so, most were blogging, but it's somehow or another some of the best tool people ended up all in the same spot. Like, I was a huge fangirl of like DAT and Modern Driver before I ever got involved in the community. So to me, I guess scconfig.mgr was like the chef's kiss of excellence when it came to community tools and information. Yes, Ben's awesome. And so like when I showed up and then wanted to make WIM Witch, for me it was a point of pride to have my shabby little community tool sitting right next to DAT, because DAT's got a lot of polish to it. Yeah, WIM Witch, that's one thing she lacks is polish. And then Ben's joined up with us. He's working on the Win30 tool app migrator, or the Win32 application migrator. So I think it's just a good mix of like people that like to script and are like-minded, very community first. We can see all of us. We're going to be at the Nordic Virtual Summit next month. Let me plug that one. But there's just a ton of great content over there. We all have different perspectives. I'm still tend to kind of look more on-prem. So mostly I just blog about WIM Witch because it takes a bunch of time. But there's great tools, great minds over there. Morris and I were doing a community tool talk, and it kept coming back to, oh yeah, here's this great tool from MS Endpoint. Oh, here's another one from MS Endpoint. And it almost sounded like we were just trying to shill. But Nikolai Anderson there is one of the most intelligent and brilliant people I've ever met. His code is just like silk. It is just elegant. I felt bad trying to simulate a WIM Witch because they had me just throw some right hosts in here to figure out how that works. But everyone over there is just very community minded. So we're happy to share.
No, sure. It's a bigger team than I thought. I knew sort of 5 of those names were part of MS Endpoint Manager, but that's a huge team. Awesome. Okay, so no more questions in chat. Any questions from the team before we jump over to the quiz?
Nothing from me.
Nope.
Just to say thanks very much, Donna. That was great. Thanks very much.
No, you're welcome. Actually,
really,
I've got
really
a question.
Useful. Thank you. Sorry.
If anybody's still hanging out in the chat, I'm just curious if anybody hasn't used WIM Witch and now is going to, or hadn't heard of WIM Witch before today. I'm just kind of trying to gauge where who's coming into these things. Since I don't collect any telemetry, I fly blind most of the time. So any kind I can get some background info is always nice.
I've kind of picked up on what you said here, and Dean's done the video, and a couple of the guys have said it, but I'm definitely going to try it out.
Fantastic.
Yep.
If anyone goes to give it, go ahead.
We've got Bart saying hi. I don't know if that's hi. Oh yeah, just seen WIM Witch in the last week. So there you go.
Awesome.
And
if you run into if you run into issues on WIM Witch, the easiest way to get a hold of me is on Twitter at the notorious DRR. Yeah, you can shoot me a DM and ask. Yeah, officially, I'm not giving in SLA, but I do my best to answer questions and fix bugs and that kind of stuff. So, if you run into something, shoot me a line.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So, thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, this was awesome. Thank you very much. We're going to head over to our quiz now. But yeah, if we can everyone just say thanks to Donna. This is different from a Teams call. Usually on a Teams call we all clap and stuff. But yeah, everyone's saying thanks in the chat. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bart. You got somebody to sign up for Twitter. That's fantastic.
Wow, I didn't think that would come out of this. That's one of the things I didn't expect. But there you go. Community rocks. Good. So we're just going to jump over to the quiz. So the quiz this time is a few questions. Hopefully you've been paying attention to Donna's talk. I'm sure you have anyway, but a lot of the questions have come from that talk. So it will be interesting to see how many people get things spectacularly wrong. So yeah, we'll give it a go. We've also removed the fastest finger first approach on this because of the delay on YouTube, and it's not really fair if everyone is having different bandwidth and stuff. So it's now, as long as you answer within 25 seconds, you've got an equal chance of winning. Good. I'm just going to drop everyone from the screen, and hopefully, if you want to just fire up your phone or web browser and go to menti.com and use the code. It's all gone very quiet because I've dropped everyone else off chat. While we wait, there's about a 15 to 20 seconds delay. So as people come in, I've got lots of messages coming in on the chat saying thank you to Donna. So thank you very much, Donna, for joining us and for keeping to time. Really, we give a very rough estimate that you'll spend about an hour talking about this, and you almost did an exact hour. So that was awesome. Thank you very much. So we've got 19 people. 19 people watching right now, I think. So we're going to have a few more seconds. I wonder. 6 people have joined. Got some cool avatars this time around, actually. There's me. I'll bring people back in while we wait. Good. I think Donna's... There you go. Yeah, so we've got a few people, 8 so far. Let's give it a few more seconds because I don't want people to lose out. This is so the prize, by the way, in case you're not joining because you don't know what the prize is. The prize is a £25 gift voucher for Amazon or any other store that you might want a gift voucher for, or dollars, if you happen to be in the States, or euros if you happen to be in Europe. We don't mind. Good. So we have 10. I'm going to call it there and wish everyone luck. Cool. Let's go. How can WIM Witch users customize their images beyond what WIM Witch offers? Is that through the Images tab, the Pause Run Scripts tab, or the Make It So tab? I should put some music in this bit, shouldn't I? Or I could just sort of hum, maybe. But you're concentrating, right? Because this is important. 10 answers. Ooh, okay. So it was the pause run script tab. So there you go. Let's see who got that right. 5 of you. This is exciting, isn't it? But it'll be full points for everyone. So this could be an interesting game. We could have a tie for the first time ever, Andy. This could be interesting. We might have to work out how to solve that. Right. Oh no. Oh no. I'm lost. I might have hit next twice. Question 2. Ooh, I think I've recovered. It's fine. Don't worry. What is the inspiration for the phrase "job's done" that's displayed when the build is complete? Is it Captain Picard from The Next Generation, Ali the Wise from RuneScape, or Pian from Warcraft 2? All of the answers were available during the session. All of these answers, anyway. There's a few in there with some random stuff, just to keep it interesting. Good people. Eight of you were listening, so that's 80%, just under 80%. Well done, everyone. Let's see how that worked. This animation always confuses me. Okay, well done to the 5 of you that got that. Well, are now on 2,000. Well done. Question 3. Definitely need some music. Whose guide did Donna use to learn how to create a GUI for PowerShell? See, it wasn't accidental that I asked the question, and Donna happened to have the tab ready to show. We did think this through. So is that Ben Reeder, Stephen Owen, or Andrew Jones? You might have heard of him. He doesn't know how to create a GUI in PowerShell, though, I guarantee that. Yeah, sadly, one of you is wrong. Yeah, Stephen Owen, Fox Deploy. See how that changed? Apparently, Andy does have an idea of how to create a GUI. Obviously, just following the Fox Deploy guide. Great. So, yeah, we are going to have, we're almost certainly going to have a tie here. So this could be interesting. What command line switch puts WIM Witch into command line mode? Is it auto, quiet, CMD, or console? Donna, you're on mic now. What made you choose the one you did choose for this? What made you choose auto? Oh, hang on, you're not on mic.
No, I'm not on mute anymore. Well, it came from not knowing how this works. So the original one was -auto on, and then I found out, oh, you could do a switch parameter instead of a string parameter. So it was just kind of there. I just converted the variable over to a switch instead of a string.
Cool.
But short for automatic, I guess. Yeah. So that way you didn't have to use CUI.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next question. Windows 365 is available in which flavors? Just threw this one in there to sort the experts from the beginners. So is it basic, business enterprise, or business enterprise, or professional enterprise, or XP? A few more seconds. 2 more people to answer. Oh no. So it's business and enterprise as opposed to basic business enterprise. Well done. The 56% of you got it right. All right. So, oh dear, are we going to split? Are we going to split it for 4 or 5 ways, or we'll need to work out exactly how much you're going to win when you when you do win, everyone, what are the minimum RAM requirements for Windows 11? 2 gig, 4 gig, 8 gig, or 16 gig? Yes, Dan, if you want to DJ, that would be absolutely beautiful. Yeah, do you want to just plug in now, and I'll take you off mute. Nope.
Yeah, well, I'll have to. It takes about 5 minutes to boot up, I'm afraid.
All right, fine. So 4 gig. See the leaderboard just to see how much we're going to spend on this quiz. Cool. Good. 3 more questions to go. What does OSD stand for? I mean, it wasn't called out during the session, but is it open source disks, often speaking Dutch, operating system deployment, or operating system destruction? Everyone's voted. That is good, and everyone's gone for OSD. Kind of, yeah. If you were getting anything from Donna's talk, then yeah, you were going to get that one right when you. It wasn't often speaking Dutch. Good. Okay, so next question. These get harder, I think, from memory. In Windows 11, which 2 components are combined? Specifically with regards to WIM Witch. Feature language packs and feature on demand, language packs and updates, or language packs and experiences. Three, two, one. Yeah, 70 of you got that right. You're all very good. You've done a lot of listening, clearly. So this is really going to be interesting because there's no differentiation depending on when you answer. So Radu is winning right now alongside Cake, who is actually a picture of a cake as well. Well done. Next question. Last question. Here we go. Oh, not last question. I can't count. Second last question. Which version of WIM Witch was Donna demonstrating today? 3.1.3, 3.2.2, or 3.2.3? Wow. 70 of you got that right. Really well listening. I didn't realize everyone listened that much. Awesome job, everyone who got that right. Radu and Cake still leading, but just by one question, and there is only one question left, so this could be a massive draw. Let's see. Final question. Which option is not listed in the scripts feature in Pause and Scripts? After image mount, on build completion, before image mount, or before image dismount? Hopefully I got those right, Donna.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. This is a good one. I had to read your answers a couple of times to figure it out, and I wrote the damn thing.
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd know the answer. There are 1 second. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. And I assume it's because you couldn't. There would be no point in pausing before the image mount, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's see what that has done to our bank account. So 4 of you got that right. It's a tie between 4 people. Radu, Cake, Leighton, and Bart. Now then, I'm going to bring the team on so we can discuss live what that means for us. So are we splitting 25 quid 4-way, or are we quadrupling 25 quid?
We just give everyone £100, I think. No.
I mean, I don't think we could.
I don't know. My gut is just give everyone winning, and then we'll make up for it some other way. We'll have to go asking for more sponsors, but everyone's deserving.
Awesome. Okay, so I know Radu. We've got Zayton, Jonathan Proctor. If you can message in chat now, Bart and Cake, that would be useful. You might be able to claim your winnings. There's a good long delay though, so this is going to be interesting. Donna, thank you so much for sticking around and for giving insight into the quiz there, and also for writing the majority of those questions. So thank you for taking part. That was really good. I've really enjoyed this. Good. Nothing in the chat. Reach out to us on Twitter if you are those people, and we will sort you out. Oh, sorry, Bart is obviously Bart. My bad. So Bart, if you could reach out to us on Twitter, because there's no email addresses here unless you've registered I've got no way of contacting you. So please reach out to us on Twitter or how else?
Or register.
Oh yeah. Dean at one sec. I'll put a message in chat. Hopefully you've all got Twitter. If you haven't, just put my email address in there so you could give us an email. So I'll drop this quiz off the screen. Cake was nerd. Awesome. Yeah, if you just try and get in contact with us, we will sort that out. That was much more complicated than I expected. We might put the put the timer back in there. Because this could get very, very expensive. But lesson learned. We've taken the hit. Thanks, Andy. Good.
I'll put some money.
Good. Awesome. Yeah. So thanks everyone for joining. Thanks everyone for taking part, and for the speakers, or Donna, as she's known, and for the rest of the team for joining us. Thank you very much. We will see you on next session is on the 9th of November, I think. The second Tuesday of November.
Patch Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good day.
Yeah. That's why we chose it originally. Then we sort of spun off into having the fourth Tuesday, mainly for speaker availability and to keep the sessions a bit more short. But we will announce the speaker for that very shortly. So please do register on the website or just watch out for us on YouTube. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.